Nigel Farage's Reform UK is set to make huge gains in red wall constituencies, as a new poll has suggested that 2/3 of voters in Labour's red wall believe that Britain is broken. London-based marketing and research agency Survation has polled 2,032 adults online aged over 18 who were living in the West Midlands, East Midlands, North East, North West and Yorkshire and Humber. The results found that 68% of people polled thought that Britain was broken. Reform's national support since the general election last year has risen from 18 to 30%, with Labour's vote share falling from 39 to 26%. The poll was also worrying news for Kemi Badenoch's Conservatives, as just 26% see them as the biggest electoral threat to Labour compared to the 44% for Reform UK. Voting intentions for areas where elections are going ahead in May indicate that Reform's share will rise to 29%, while Labour's falls to 20%, with the Tories on 24%. Around 53% of people said that the cost of living is the most important issue for deciding how they will vote in local elections next month, with immigration on 35% and health on 32%. A Reform source has told The Sun, Labour have abandoned working people to become a party of middle-class North London lawyers who have completely lost touch of working people and their own heartlands. The damning poll for the government comes as Nigel Farage launches his local elections campaign in Morpeth, where he made clear that the party is giving Labour one hell of a run for their money and is now the opposition to the Labour Party, with the Conservatives trailing some way behind. Speaking on stage, Mr Farage launched a scathing attack on the government, where he attacked a range of what he called Labour lies, accusing them of a cover-up in the wake of the Southport attack that saw 3 young girls murdered in the summer of 2024.
Good morning, everybody. And I mentioned Runcorn because Runcorn is that kind of constituency. It is Labour's 16th safest seat in the United Kingdom. Well, I'm going to be there again on Thursday of this week, and all I can tell you is we're giving them one hell of a run for their money. And it's going to be, I get it. They've got 10 times the number of staff we've got. They've got a lot more money than we've got. They've got a much bigger machine than we've got, but it is going to be, I think, incredibly close in Runcorn. So in the Midlands, in the North, in Wales and in Scotland, Reform is now the opposition to the Labour Party, with the Conservatives trailing some way behind. And in these red wall areas, any thought that the Conservatives would start to win again, seats that they surprised people with in 2019, some here indeed in County Durham, it's for the birds. The sheer level of betrayal of what people who voted for Boris Johnson in 2019 got. They didn't get the Brexit they voted for, and they got mass immigration on a scale never seen before in the history of these islands. Those people are not ever going to trust the Conservative Party up here again, and frankly, nor should they. The Reform are parking their tanks on the lawns of the red wall. Today's the first day I've said that, but I absolutely mean it, and we're here to stay. And the evidence is that people who are switching to us, this is not a short-term protest. They actually believe in us, which is why the Labour lie machine is in full groove. We see it in the House of Commons every week. We're certainly seeing it in the by-election in Runcorn, and we'll see it, I'm sure, here in County Durham and elsewhere. They're digging up the old Russia conspiracy theory, which somehow people seem to be so fond of. The fact that I said once 12 years ago that I respected Putin as a leader but didn't like him, wouldn't want to live in the country, and have condemned him for the attack, the vicious attack on Ukraine. But somehow the line that Starmer keeps coming out with is that we fawn over Putin. Outright lies. On the NHS, they're putting out literature saying, vote Reform, and they'll charge you 15 grand for a hip replacement. We've never, ever, ever suggested anything other than the NHS should be free. What worries us is all the tax money that goes in, how badly it gets spent and allocated. Of course, one of the problems is that 7.2 million foreign-born people have signed up with GPs in the last 10 years alone. Can you believe that? 7.2 million people extra. So don't be surprised if there's a big queue to get, an appointment with your local GP. Reform will re-industrialise Britain, and we'll have a proper, sound industrial policy, but it only works if we start producing enough of our own gas and oil and coal and all of those things. And we really, really believe in that. But we're also on the side of those on low pay. And I think our biggest policy at the general election that we launched and will keep fighting for is, rather than the level at which we start paying tax being frozen, the way it is year after year after year, we believe the most dramatic tax change that is needed is to lift the level at which people start paying tax to £20,000 a year. That will mean people on low pay genuinely will be a bit better off. But equally important, it will incentivise those on benefits who know that if they work for more than 16 hours a week, all their benefits will be taken away. It will incentivise them to get back to work. So I firmly believe that we are the party of working people. And there's anger out there on the streets in these red wall areas over two-tier care, two-tier policing, two-tier justice, and two-tier recruitment. What happened after Southport was the most appalling cover-up. If we'd known the identity and something about the murderer, I don't believe those riots would have happened on anything like the scale that they did.
Following his speech, Mr. Farage spoke to GB News about the government's failure to rule out another Chinese owner taking over Scunthorpe's steel plant.
The very thought the government could even contemplate another Chinese owner of British steel is truly dreadful. There is no such thing as a private company in China. They're all effectively under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. Clearly, the government have learnt nothing if they're prepared to say this. I'd go further. I wouldn't have the China in our nuclear program, anywhere near our telecoms or anything else. They are not our friends.
Now, over to Birmingham now, where unions obviously failed to reach a deal with the UK government, are now encouraging unions across the country to essentially send their workers out on strike. How would you resolve this, and what is your message to the people of Birmingham who are currently undergoing this infestation?
Well, the situation in Birmingham is truly awful. It's a proper national health hazard, because it could spread with many other strikes. It's a real worry. The reason the unions are doing this is they perceive the Labour government to be weak. Right at the start of Starmer's administration, he gave in to several quite big pay demands. That's why we're in the situation that we're in. How quickly Labour can resolve it, I just don't know.
Sir Alan Bates is urging post office victims to take the government to court over delays in compensation, claiming that advice from victims is ignored, out of hand, with the feeblest of excuses. So do you support Mr Bates in this?
I think Alan Bates has been a hero in this all the way through, and he was fighting not just for himself, he was fighting for others that had been wronged as well. And I think people better listen pretty quickly to the fact that if compensation is not being paid, it needs to happen, and quickly.
Will you be posting your tax returns this year?
I won't post my personal tax returns, no. I mean, what I do post is all the income that my company has, so it doesn't take much guessing, given that I declare everything anyway. But I think, if you start to ask politicians for tax returns, you then ask them for medical statements, there has to be some limit here somewhere.